Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Last time I asked a question in the class, what happens if we not use curly braces in if-else statement or into the loops. Okay, here is the answer. Comma in place of curly braces. We know that the curly braces are used to define the body of a function and scope of the control statements. The opening curly braces indicates starting of the scope and close curly braces indicates the end of the scope. In between these two curly braces we write the body of the control statements or our functions. It is also possible to use comma operator in condition and loop statement in place of curly braces to indicate the scope of the statement. The use of comma operator is not allowed in definition of functions. For example, the following declaration is invalid. Int main, we always use curly braces here instead of commas. So this is an invalid declaration. Let's have a program explain the use of comma operators with conditional and loop statements. So here we start our program int main, and after writing int main we put starting curly brace. In starting curly brace we declare a variable x and pass a value 10 to it, uh, and this variable has a integer data type. After that we have a condition if x is equal to 10. We start our if block. When we start our if block, normally we write this if block in between the curly braces. Now if we not use curly braces, what we use? If you are not want to use the curly braces, then your statements must look like this. Cout, then we want to display x. At the end of this line, instead of placing semicolons, we normally end it with the comma. It means that our if block is not end here. Then on the second line, cout x plus 1, we want to print x plus 1 on the screen. And again, on the end of this line, we did not use semicolon. We use a comma. We end this line with the comma and we go to the third line. We display x plus 2 on the screen, and again we did not place any semicolon at the end of the line. In the last statement, cout and if block. Now here we end our if block, and instead of placing a comma we place a semicolon. Above end of if block terminates by semicolon. Okay, similarly if we use else, then similarly to the if block we have an else block, and normally we always place this else block between the curly braces. Now instead of curly braces we place comma at the end of each line, and when our else block is going to end, we place a semicolon in the end of the last line. So above end of else block terminates by semicolon. Then return 0 for the main program. Here is the output of this program. As you see that x is equal to 10, so if statement x is equal to 10 is true. If that is true, then our output is look like this: 10, 11, 12, and the last line prints int and if block. In the previous program, integer variable x is declared and initialized with 10. The if statement checks the value of x and execute respective blocks. The statement of if and else blocks are terminated by comma. The last statement of if block and else block are terminated by a semicolon to indicate the end of scopes. In this program, the if block is executed. Now similarly, we see how we use comma operator in loops. In this program, first of all, we initialize an integer type variable x with a value 5. After that, we start our for loop body. Uh, First of all, for the condition of for loop for semicolon x greater than 0, semicolon x minus minus. After that, we write the body of the for loop between the curly braces, which is look like this: cout x is equal to whatever x it prints on the screen. Then instead of curly braces, we similarly write two statements, and each statement terminate with the column, except the last statement we place semicolon in the last of the statement. So after the end of for loop, we want to write another statement cout out of loop, and again we terminate it with the semicolon. In the above program, the statements terminate by a comma or indicate in the scope of for loop. The first two statements are terminated by comma and the last statement is terminated by semicolon. That is end of scope of for loop. The output of this program look like this: x is equal to 5 in loop, x is equal to 4, x is equal to 3, x is equal to 2, x is equal to 1, and after ending the loop, it displays loop out of loop.